If you want to stay up to date with all current hip hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to become part of this community. So there was an interesting article in the New York Times yesterday on March 11th, and it basically talked about the Grammys, which are, of course, this Sunday on March 14th, and also about The Weeknd and his relationship with the Grammys. Now, you may know that connection with The Weeknd and the Grammys from the whole controversy surrounding The Weeknd's 2020 album, After Hours. Now, After Hours dropped in March of 2020 and was one of the best-selling albums of the year, and if you've been watching the channel for some time, you know that I love that album. On my live streams, which, by the way, every Sunday 2 p.m. EST, make sure to be there. It's a great time. I mention this album a lot because I'm so in love with it. I actually discovered it a couple of months ago again. And it's amazing. It's so amazing. That album is probably the best record of 2020 just as a whole. But the controversy was that the Grammys totally snubbed that record for any nomination. The Weeknd wasn't on the Grammy nomination list even once. And also on the performance list, he wasn't mentioned, even though he was probably one of the biggest, maybe even the biggest artist of 2020 in terms of numbers and in terms of influence and in terms of media coverage and all that. So that was a lot of people were upset about that. Also, very publicly, The Weeknd as well. And this article talked about how, we know who's performing, which I recently dropped a video on, which if you want to know who's performing on Sunday at the Grammys in a digital format, then go check out that video. I think it's very interesting. I also talk a lot about how the Grammys have kind of failed to make up their reputation of not really being in touch with the music industry and culture. But anyway, The Weeknd has now publicly said that he will not in the future be submitting his work to Grammy consideration. And he's basically trying to, and he said this, boycott the Grammys in the future because, or due to their actions that they got into a lot of trouble with surrounding his album After Hours after the nominations were released back in, I think it was September, October, November, sometime around that of 2020. So that's very interesting. There's a lot of stuff we can say about this and that we can get from it. Now, what's important to mention is that a lot of artists have publicly spoken out against the Grammys and have publicly also said that they didn't submit their records for Grammy consideration. Some names include Kanye, Drake, Frank Ocean, and other high-profile artists. I think Taylor Swift also had a certain period of time where she didn't submit her stuff to the Grammys, but I think she did this year for Folklore because, it is nominated, so she must have had submitted it. But this is the first time that The Weeknd is not submitting his stuff, and The Weeknd is actually someone who doesn't have a bad relationship with the Grammys. He has won several Grammys in the past, I believe, for Beauty Behind the Madness in 2015, 2016. He won 2 Grammys, I believe. So, he's not someone who has, in all been kind of neglected by the Grammys or not been appreciated as much as he should have been, because let's be real, the Weeknd is someone who openly gets his recognition, his props for what he's doing for the culture, for music. So I'm sure he's not missing out on any type of respect or attention that he thinks he deserves. Also, his numbers are doing incredibly well. He just spent $7 million on his own halftime show at the Super Bowl. Like, he spent his own money. Like, he put up the $7 million to, put up the show and make it the way that he wants it to be, because, in the long run, that's better for his career, and he wanted to create something that was timeless and that was just a piece of art, which I really appreciate. So The Weeknd has kind of really been a sympathizing figure for the public, for the average music listener, just because he's very transparent with what he believes in, the values he's portraying, and this new boycotting thing that he has going on with the Grammys, I think, is just another piece of the puzzle, because in the long run, I believe that the Grammys really need to switch up some of their decision-making systems and some of the ways that they choose what albums are being considered for the Grammy that year. Now, The Weeknd said that he will no longer submit his music to the Grammys because of the secret committees. And what he's basically trying to say with that is that there's a lot going on at the Grammys decision-making conferences, or the committees that decide which music should be nominated for a Grammy, and then eventually which music or which piece of either it's a song or a performance or album in the end wins that category at the Grammys. And he's saying that a lot of stuff is really happening in the dark behind people's backs, with just a couple of people just deciding on that, and it's going on and happening in secret. And there's a lack of transparency, there's a lack of understanding for the people to really have criteria for which record gets which category and what really plays a role in the decision making of what album gets a Grammy, and that is just what he's boycotting. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I've said this in the past many times before, but I believe that there should be more independent award shows happening, giving attention, shining more light on lesser known artists, really, playing their role as an organization that is giving awards to the people that deserve them, and not just going by popularity or streams or sales or whatever, because that is truly what the Grammys are doing. I love that Apple did their own Apple Music Awards, even though they were also very one-sided, but props to Apple for that. Maybe they'll get better in the future. And I also like small stuff like the Yammies, like the thing that the ASAP Mob did for Yams Day, where they really, I discovered some, very small or smaller artists through that. The best example from the Yammy specifically being Tizo Touchdown, that I've come to really love and enjoy his music. So I think The Weeknd boycotting the Grammys is something very important happening in the music industry, something that's been overdue for a long time. There's some change that needs to happen in the way that music awards are being given out, and especially with these big organizations that, act like they know what they're talking about, but in reality they're very detached from the actual music that is being put out. So let me know what you think about this. Do you think the Weeknd is doing a good deed for the music culture and industry by boycotting the Grammys publicly? Or do you think this whole thing is kind of overblown and he's just being a little salty for being snubbed? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's have a discussion about this, and I'll look forward to talking to you. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media and blog down in the description. It really helps me out. Until the next one, y'all have an incredible day, and y'all take care.